Order the August 21st joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority. May we have a roll call for the City Council?
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Nukian.
Here.
Jarian.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Quintero.
Here. And for the Housing Authority, please.
Authority members: Friedman.
Here.
Nukian. Mincy.
Here.
Karazian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Najarian.
Here.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the August 21st, 2012 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, August 16, 2012 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Before you today is the public hearing Director of Community Development regarding California Municipal Finance Authority's proposed issuance of approximately $20 million in tax-exempt revenue bonds in support of Casa de la Paloma, a Glendale affordable senior housing residential facility owned and operated by Southern California Presbyterian Homes. 1A is council resolution approving execution of a joint exercise of power agreement with California Municipal Finance Authority and approving their issuance of the bonds.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. We have before you this hearing. That way, the Southern California Presbyterian Homes can come before you to seek a resolution of support under the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. They are an independent nonprofit, yet the Act requires that if they are going to be issuing debt, they have to receive a resolution of support from the local governing agency. That would be the City of Glendale and the Housing Authority. Did you want to introduce them, Bill?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Peter Zobak
open the public hearing.
We'll give you the details on our relationship or what the project is entailed of.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, members of the Authority and Council. As Mr. Ochoa mentioned, Southern California Presbyterian Homes, a Glendale-based nonprofit senior housing developer, has applied for the issuance of up to approximately $20 million in private activity revenue bonds to be issued by California Municipal Finance Authority, CMFA, in support of the rehabilitation of Casa de la Paloma. And as mentioned, in order to issue the revenue bonds that will be utilized within the city limits, the City Council has been requested to conduct what is known as a TEFRA hearing on behalf of the developer and CMFA. It's a requirement of the Internal Revenue Code. And also, in order for CMFA to have the authority to serve as the issuer of the bonds for the proposed project, it's necessary for the City of Glendale to become a member of the CMFA via a joint exercise of powers agreement that's attached to your staff report as Exhibit 1. A CMFA was created in January 2004 to promote economic, cultural, and community development through the financing of economic development activities throughout California. To date, they have a membership of over 150 municipalities. And the agreement provides that CMFA is a public entity separate and apart from each member executing such agreement. The bonds to be issued by CMFA for the proposed project will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and the city will have no financial, legal, moral obligation, liability, or responsibility for the proposed project and the repayment of the bonds. All financing documents with respect to the issuance of the bonds contain disclaimers that the bonds are not the obligations of the city or the state of California, but are to be paid solely from funds provided by the borrower. There are no costs associated with membership into the CMFA, and the city will no way become exposed to any financial liability by reasons of its membership into CMFA. In addition, participation by the city in CMFA will not impact the city's appropriation limits on any other type of city activity going on with regards to bonds, will not constitute any type of indebtedness by the city. And outside of holding the TEFRA hearing and this public hearing on behalf of CMFA and SCPH, adopting the required resolution and executing the agreement of CMFA, no other participation or activity is being requested by the Glendale City Council. Just as a matter of background with regards to Casa de la Paloma, that building was developed in 1978. It is the Housing Authority's first affordable housing project. It's a 9-story, 167-unit, all consisting of one-bedroom senior building right here on Kenwood, right next to the library. At the time it was developed, it was sponsored in conjunction with HUD via HUD's 221D3 program that they had at the time. The project is reserved for very low-income seniors. The Housing Authority provided approximately $475,000 back in 1978 towards the development of the project. The Housing Authority's affordable housing covenants on the property were 30-year covenants that expired in 2008. During the 30-year term, the Housing Authority staff did monitor the project. Everything was found to be in compliance for the 30 years, and as a result, and in accordance with the loan that was provided to the developer, the Housing Authority loan has been forgiven. The HUD loan still is in existence. HUD provides monthly assistance to the project via its HUD Section 8 project-based rental assistance. The developer can, or the tenants who live in those units continue to be a benefit of the Section 8 program. That's not proposed to change under this scenario. What this financing will do with the private activity revenue bonds will actually place a new set of affordable housing covenants onto the building, and those will be extended out for now another 55 years in terms of affordability. So it will extend the life of the building, and the rehabilitation is intended to make that building last for the additional 55 years. We have representatives of SCPH as well as CMFA here to answer any questions you might have.
Well, go ahead, Mr. McNichol.
Well, if we have no part in any of these functions, including the bonds, repayment, any liabilities, what is our function? Why do they need to come to us to issue the bonds?
Because of the way that the Internal Revenue Code works with the bonds, they need to have a public hearing conducted. And in the opinion of the Internal Revenue Service, that public hearing should be conducted in the area in which the bonds will be utilized. And so they are asking the City Council.
Why can't they conduct a public hearing on their own? Why does it have to? Why does the Joint City Council and Housing Authority need to conduct a public hearing for them?
The wording on the Internal Revenue Code is that it's a requirement of a public hearing of the elected public body.
Okay, public agency.
Correct.
Is there a benefit to the taxpayers of the City of Glendale?
There is one side benefit to the Glendale City Council holding this public hearing for SCPH and CMFA, in that CMFA will remit a portion of the issuance fee for the bonds to the City of Glendale, and it's been approximated to about $9,000 if the developer intends to use the full issuance of the $20 million. That would be remitted back to the City of Glendale and would be deposited into the general fund.
And again, we have no liability and any sort of encumbrance with this public hearing?
No, we do not. And I should mention that the City of Glendale has issued private activity revenue bonds before, both for city-sponsored projects as well as private projects like this. Some have been for Glendale Adventist Hospital, Tobin World, some other nonprofits like that that had some capital needs for some of their facilities.
Thank you.
So if I'm not mistaken, the idea is that for these bonds to be qualified as municipal bonds, which are presumably are they tax-free bonds if they're issued, that there's some benefit to the municipality, and that's our role here. One of the things that we're saying is that there is that the bonds will be used to upgrade the La Paloma, which is a benefit to the city, and to the extent that it provides low-income housing to our, in this case, our seniors, that it's something that we basically put our stamp of approval on.
That's correct, sir. These are tax exempt because there's a public purpose.
So this is why we're
It's not
approving.
That's right.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I have been to La Paloma many times. I've always been impressed with how well it's run and upkeep on the property. I was just a question on Section 8. Does that mean that every renter is a member of Section 8? I didn't understand.
Every unit is a Section 8 unit. Every qualified tenant that moves into that unit will receive Section 8 benefits. So once they move out of that unit, the Section 8 assistance stays with the unit. And that's considered and called project-based rental assistance, as opposed to the City Housing Authority's program, which is a housing voucher that goes with the tenant from whichever unit they are living in.
Wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. And during the relocate and the rehabilitation, are they going to relocate the tenants?
At this point, the rehabilitation work's been determined to allow the residents to stay in place. A lot of the work is really within the common areas and on the exterior of the buildings and on some of the mechanical equipment there. and whatever work takes place within the units will be very minimal and wouldn't
It will
require
not displace
displacement.
any of the residents?
Nothing planned, no.
Okay, I have one speaker card, Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon, members of the Housing Authority and City Council. My name is Herbert Milano. I put a card in expecting to perhaps get a little bit more clarity with regard to the role that one of the questions that you yourselves have asked today. Simply because it's kind of like an unusual transaction. You are providing the oversight to some extent, or the city is, on a fairly independent project. And when I looked at the numbers, I was trying to see if I could put my, conceptually, my mind around how this works. And I was wondering if there's a way to get an explanation that sort of identifies how it really works. For example, you have 167 units and $20 million of a bond issue. And if you're providing oversight, I said to myself, well, that's $120,000 a unit. Is it spread out during the 30 years? What's the actual, should we say, cost for this rehabilitation for which the bonds are being issued? That is, of course, if the Housing Authority is providing some oversight. Generally, what is the overall subsidy that these seniors are getting vis-a-vis, let's say, what's the rental amount, what's the amount of subsidy that they receive, how long do they usually live in these units before, do they live until they die there, or do they move into a hospice situation afterwards? It doesn't really tell you very much concerning the actual workings, at least not from a kind of like a cost accounting point of view. How is that benefit being distributed? For how long does it take? Who is eventually responsible for this, that kind of stuff? As I look at it as a layperson, it's somewhat still ambiguous, and I thought perhaps with the experts here, we could get a little bit more clarity on how all this works. Thanks.
Do I have a motion?
Well, I just want to clarify. From my understanding, Mr. Milano, we're not providing oversight of anything. It's just, we're just conducting a public hearing and getting $9,000 for it, basically. So the city has no oversight authority or nothing. They can go to another agency and have the other agency provide the hearing, and they would get the $9,000 at that point. So that's basically it.
Do I have a motion for the City Council?
I'll move the item.
Second.
Okay, so to be clear, I'll read into the record. The bonds to be issued by CMFA for the proposed project will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and the city will have no financial, legal, moral obligation, liability, or responsibility for the proposed project or the repayment of the bonds for the financing of the proposed project. All financing documents with respect to the issuance of the bonds will contain clear disclaimers that the bonds are not obligations of the city or the state of California, but are to be paid for solely from the funds provided by the borrower. And that's in the staff report. I'll close the public hearing. Roll call.
Council members: Friedman,
Yes.
Menuchyan,
Yes.
Jarian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Quintero.
Yes. Is there a motion for the House? No, just City Council.
Just
Move to adjourn for council.
second.
We are adjourned.